Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now.
Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys. Here tonight with Tanner and Goose both, and we're going to jump into what we see playing out a little over a week from today in the draft. We've done a few mocks. Tanner's been on a little PTO the last couple episodes, and he's ready to tell us the top 5 most realistic picks that we're going to see at pick 23. So we've talked about trading back, talked about trading up. We're just going to say that the Vikings are going to stand pat at 23. And Tanner, you're going to give us a few names. We made Tanner narrow it down, Goose, to 5 because Tanner was drooling over a few more, but we're going to go with 5 guys. Tanner's got the insight of who those are most likely to be. So Tanner, we're going to kick it over to you and run the show here a little bit, but give me of the top 5, Tanner, who's probably the 5th most likely player for the Vikings to select at 23. Who do you got for us?
Yeah, before I start with the names, I do want to I'm glad that you did bring that up about representing the fact that this is indicating that the Vikings are staying at 23. I do think there's a good chance that they trade back, but assuming they stay at 23, these are the 5 guys. So starting with number 5, we're going to go with a defensive lineman here, and Kalijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh. For those that don't know him that well, he broke the combine record for defensive lineman in the 40-yard dash, 4.67, which is like faster than most linebackers, probably a couple of corners, and even safeties. So the dude's got wheels. Super athletic. He killed the combine. PFF's number 6 graded overall interior defensive lineman in 2022, and he was the number 1 graded pass rusher in college football last year. So a lot of tremendous upside with him, and a lot of people have actually been comparing him to like a poor man's Aaron Donald. Our defense is in shambles right now, but if I actually had to pick a position that I think is a strength, I would actually say it probably is the defensive line. Harrison Phillips is obviously a solid veteran. And I obviously, both you guys know, I'm a really big fan of Khyiris Tonga coming back, and I do think that he'll probably be a starter here in 2023 as well. But as for that 3rd slot in Flores' defense, I think that's kind of wide open right now. If we started the season tomorrow, I think that would be a toss-up between Dean Lowry and Jonathan Bullard fighting for that last spot again. But I think if they draft a guy like Kancey at 23, I think there's a pretty good chance that he could be the starter day 1 as well. And missing or losing some interior pass rush value last year is probably something that our team was missing quite a bit, and I think Kancey would provide quite a bit of that. So,
Goose, Kancey, defensive tackle. I don't think any of us would say the Vikings don't need a little bit more speed on the defensive side of the ball. So do you like that? Do you like going defensive line that early, and can you see it happening?
I don't like it. I have seen a lot of mocks where Breesy's there, or Kancey, or even an edge that maybe lasts on the board longer than expected. I think looking at our roster right now, you have to see that we've got three edge guys on the roster. There's a lot of chatter that not all 3 will be there opening day, and so I think you do look at maybe adding someone. I just think corner is such a big need, wide receiver is such a big need, that anything other than those I don't love. The one thing that Kancey brings to the table is a freak athlete, and Tanner hit on it a little bit. Our 3 down linemen just did not really contribute to sack numbers at all. And so the idea of a super athletic guy who can knife in there and create some pressure is nice. I also just don't know in the NFL with the big boys how much he's doing against the run. And we've been bullied around plenty in the past few years that I'd worry about an undersized D tackle that's getting pushed around. So not a huge fan. I'm glad this is at least at the end of Tanner's list.
So you'd rather have them spend some capital than in the secondary, is what Goose is saying, if we're going on the defensive side of the ball. So Tanner, I think number 4 on your list was a safety out of Alabama, Brian Branch. Tell us a little bit about Mr. Branch.
Some people would actually like to classify him as just like a straight up nickel corner. And that's a lot of what he played at Alabama. He is actually like considered like the number one safety in the draft, but a lot of where he primarily lined up at Alabama was in the slot, and he would instantly be our day one starter here if we were to draft him in that scenario. So I like the versatility, and I think the Vikings would like that versatility in Flores' defense as well, to kind of have that ability to do what the younger Harrison Smith used to be, and have that ability to come down, play man-to-man in that nickel slot. You can play that deep safety role and then be used as a blitzer as well. And there is a small group of people out there that don't really love the idea of drafting a safety at all yet this year because they seem to think that that's a strength. But Harrison Smith is 34 years old. Like, I realize we all love him. He's been a great player for us for 10 plus years, but he's not getting younger. And he is going to depreciate every year now that he continues to stay in the league. Everything with Lewis Cine is kind of unknown yet. He was a first-round pick last year, but completely shattered his leg, and it's just tough to say what he's going to be like coming back from injury. And then obviously Cam Bynum, I don't think Goose or I are really that big of a fan of Cam Bynum. I don't know about you, Brent, but I think he's very replaceable. So I think Brian Branch would be a solid pickup here. My comp for him is actually Logan Ryan, a guy who has played safety and corner in the league. Branch was the number 3 overall graded safety in college football last year, the number 2 graded run defender, which is big.
Goose, do you co-sign on Brian Branch?
I do. I won't add a ton because for anyone who's watched our mock draft 2.0, and if you haven't, go take a look. I think we ended up with a pretty good draft there. I got to talk about Brian Branch for a decent amount of time. We almost took him, ended up trading back, and he was gone. But I love the idea that he could plug and play at slot, and then he could be the next Harrison Smith as a super versatile defensive weapon. And if Lewis Cine pans out, Lewis is a super athlete, and I think it would give Lewis the flexibility to play center field, and Brian Branch to kind of be your Swiss Army knife that can play at the line of scrimmage, move around, play in the slot, take away a tight end. So I definitely like the versatility there.
Tanner, why don't you go into another member of the secondary, your corner from Maryland, Mr. Banks. What do you got for us there at the third most likely selection?
Yeah, so I've hit on this a couple times too in previous episodes. I'm a pretty big fan of Deontay Banks. And the reason I am going with him here specifically, I mean, other people might question if you're watching this video why you're not picking a guy like Witherspoon or Joey Porter. I expect those guys to be gone. I don't see any way they make it even to 20. So of the next most realistic options there, I think Deontay Banks is probably the best guy with the highest upside. So my count for him in previous episodes, I'm going to stick with it, is like a poor man's Patrick Peterson. Really good tester, very fast, ran a 4.35, jumped a 42-inch vertical at the combine. Didn't play against that great of competition in college, but I think with the cornerback position, that's one spot that you just want to be able to have traits that are coachable. And I think Brian Flores will do a good job of sticking him in a secondary with Brian Murphy and a couple other young guys to battle that out and nail up that final spot.
Goose, what do you think?
Yeah, again, not a ton to add. We've had a few videos now on the cornerback position. Love the traits. I'd like to think we can coach them up, but Zimmer was supposed to be a cornerback whisperer, and we kept taking them in the first round, and they weren't panning out. So I think you draft and have some hope that this staff can be a little bit better at that.
Okay. So we covered the secondary there. Tanner, I think your two most likely picks at 23. You both are on the offensive side of the ball and at wide receiver. So why don't you tell us about USC Jordan Addison, second most likely player to be selected at 23 in your opinion?
Yeah, wide receiver is going to be addressed at some point. I think that's pretty obvious.
Do you think it's going to be early?
I do.
Thursday night. Okay.
I think within the first 3 rounds, whether they trade back, I think within those first 3 rounds that they'll probably address that. to throw in some competition. I mean, KJ is a solid option, but they're definitely going to want some competition at that spot heading into training camp, and the free agent options are all trash. There's nothing left. So I love Jordan Addison. He is one of my favorite players in this class, actually. And again, for the third time, we've talked multiple times about this guy in the past in our videos, and route running is the one trait that translates well to the pros. And that's exactly what Jordan Addison's strength is he's a really good route runner. So not going to blow you away with speed. But like I said, the route running is going to be really big in the pros. And I think if he can adjust to the physicality and the really good press corners in the league, I think Justin Jefferson is going to help him a lot with that as well. Arguably the best route runner in football. So to have him as your go-to guy in practice every single day to learn from him, that's going to be huge for Addison. And I think he would be an absolutely solid wide receiver 2 for this team.
Goose, I know you had to make this pick the other night when we were doing the mock draft.
Yeah, thankfully the draft made it for me. Addison was gone. I do like him a lot. I think the only concern I've really seen with him is a little bit on size, and then a little bit that his production dropped a bit when he transferred from Pitt to USC. But it sounds like USC just didn't use him quite as well as Pitt did. But he was a big reason that Kenny Pickett went in the first round. I'm excited. I think any wide receiver that's taken, the thing that I'm most excited about is that normally if you're taken in the first, second, maybe even third round, you're kind of expected to come in and be the guy, and no one has to do that on the Vikings roster, and it's going to allow them to have a lot more success early, I think.
For sure. Well, Tanner, why don't you tell us the most likely pick for the Vikings next Thursday night at pick 23, assuming they stay there at 23, in your opinion is?
Zay Flowers, Goose's guy. Let's go back and watch the last video. His mock draft. I'm gonna go with Zay Flowers. Not my favorite receiver in the class, but I think that this is a guy that's been projected like up and down the board. There isn't a clear-cut wide receiver 1 in this class. He could easily be the first guy off the board, but I think he could also be easily like the 4th guy off the board. But I think that the Vikings have done a lot of homework on him, and KOC has already mentioned in interviews he's really good friends with Boston College's head coach. So I think there's a lot of familiarity there, and I think that this makes a lot of sense. They've done, like I said, a lot of homework on him. He's got plus ball skills for a smaller dude, which is super important in the league as well, just as important as route running. And he is a speedster, runs a 4.42. Can play the slot inside and out, and the Vikings are really missing a guy on our team right now that can just stretch the field like a true deep threat. And I think to have really good ball skills and be able to stretch the field, like those are two things that go hand in hand and can really benefit our offense heading into this season.
So you looked at this through the lens of what you think is most likely to happen. If and obviously the board's going to play out way differently than any mock draft or prediction there, but knowing what you think, if that is the name on the card at 23, are you happy with that, Tanner?
Yeah. Zay Flowers specifically? Yes. Yeah. I think that would be a solid pick. I think any of those top 4 receivers, Zay Flowers, Njigba, Quentin Johnston, and Jordan Addison, if we come away with any of those guys, I would be pretty happy with our first round selection. I think we're in desperate need of a wide receiver 2 right now, and I think any one of those guys could set us up for the next couple of years.
And Goose, I know with your mock, you got cute, traded back, and still picked up Zay Flowers. I know you're happy with it at the time. Anything changed in the last week, or are you still pretty thrilled if that's the name called out?
No, I'm pumped. I think looking at Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison is kind of splitting hairs. I think Tanner and I will have some fun looking at this a year or 2 from now. I think he maybe gives the nod to Addison. I'm starting to like Zay a little bit more. And I think we'll have some fun and see who has the better start to their career and see how that comes out. Those are always my favorite things to kind of go back and be like, oh, I like this prospect and look how they're doing. So obviously it'll depend pretty big on who they each go to and what kind of system and team they're in. But that'll be a fun one, I think, to look back on. They're pretty similar players, in my opinion.
Definitely. Well, there you have it. If you're watching the show, give us an opinion on Tanner's top 5 most likely. Do you see that playing out? Is there a dark horse name there that Tanner may have missed?
Bijan Robinson. Sorry.
We already did that one. So if it is Dave Flowers, the little bit I know about him, Goose, Tanner, I think super solid pick, and you can't go wrong there. I feel like upside is pretty high there as well. So we'll see what happens. Throw some comments. Let us know what you think of that. Subscribe if you've not yet already done so. And we'll be back again before you know it here on the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.